Let the record show that the special Riverview City Council meeting was called to order at 7 p.m. on August 14th, 2023. Will the clerk please take roll?
Councilmember Blanchett.
Here.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Here.
Excuse me. Councilmember Norton.
Here.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Robbins.
Here.
Mayor Swift.
Here.
Councilmember Workman.
Here.
Okay, we call the public hearing to order. 3.1 is conduct public hearing on creation of a special assessment for police protection, public safety costs and expenses, and establishment of a special assessment district by the City Council of the City of Riverview, Michigan, as allowed under the Public Act 33 of 1931. I will read the background, and then we'll get our public input. On June 19, 2023, the City Council authorized and directed the City Manager to prepare cost estimates for the Police Public Safety Special Assessment for the Riverview Police Department Public Safety. These cost estimates have been prepared and shared with the City Council and filed with the City Clerk. The cost estimate of $1.544 million, which is equal to 4 mills, is to be used for the purchasing of police motor vehicles, apparatus, and equipment to defray the costs of maintenance and operations, including personnel of the police department for a period of 10 years. For purposes of funding these costs and expenses, the City Council has created a special assessment district pursuant to Michigan Public Act 33 of 1951, as amended, against which the estimated costs and expenses will be assessed. A public hearing must be held to allow comments on the estimated costs and the creation of the special assessment district. Notice of the public hearing was published in the News Herald on July 30th, 2023, and again on August 9th, 2023. In addition, public notices for the public hearing were mailed to all property owners located with the proposed special assessment district. The special assessment district will encompass all lots and parcels and located within the City of Riverview. The City Council is requested to conduct a public hearing to allow comments on estimated costs and the creation of the Special Assessment District in accordance with the district, in accordance with Public Act 33 of 1951 as amended. So at this point, I would ask anyone who wants, we'll make it clear here, you're allowed 5 minutes during this part, and there's also another public comment at the end of the meeting. You'll be allowed 5 minutes there also. So you have actually two parts for a public comment. So anyone wishing to address the mayor and council, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Keep your comments to 5 minutes. There is no sharing of time and no rebuttals. And please be respectful. Yes, sir.
Ken Kyleman, 20243 Coachwood. If I understand the purpose of this meeting correctly, the council intends to ask the voters to assess up to an additional 4 mills for 10 years, so as to be able to raise an estimated $1.544 million in additional taxes a year to fund public safety. I'm a bit unclear as to whether this is to cover shortfalls in the budget due to the closure of the landfill, or if this is new spending. If it's for the latter, new spending, it seems to be a bit premature, as we have the closure of the landfill just over the horizon that has to be dealt with before continuing to new spending of this magnitude. If it's for the former, that is designating funds specifically for public safety, thus allowing the funds formerly used for that purpose to be reallocated to cover the shortfall, then it needs to be noted, unless I'm mistaken, that these funds, along with the funds that the city can expect to collect as a result of allowing cannabis dispensaries, will more than make up for the $1.630 million that the landfill is contributing towards the city's expenses this fiscal year. And if that's the case, it also needs to be noted that if these 4 mills are approved, any additional proposed increases to our taxes would not be the result of the closure of the landfill, but would have other unrelated causes that will need to be explained should the need for the additional millage arise. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Greetings. My name is David Ryan. I'm at 17584 Clark Street. My comment is that I would like to see any assessment of a new millage increase to be as minimal as possible for as short a time as possible in light of the fact that we just, I think, got past the last obstacle as far as dispensaries opening up in the city. With me being optimistic, I guess, that there will be significant revenue from that will at least help. The other aspect for me is that I think, and I've expressed this in the past, I believe we could be overspending on the police department. Doesn't mean I'm against law enforcement, doesn't mean I'm against the police department. My misunderstanding is around the vehicle purchases for the police department. I simply don't understand why we need to have new vehicles on such a regular basis. I can't imagine that patrolling a city that's a couple of square miles is that hard on these vehicles. I think that we should be able to tighten our belts, stretch out our usage of vehicles, do some other things that we may be able to do to reduce spending, and maybe reallocate some funding someplace if we could. But once again, let's tighten our belts, rethink how we're funding the police department, slow down on police car purchases or other, I'm going to say, extraordinary purchases. And let's start, I'm assuming we're already doing some sort of an estimation on the expected revenue that will be coming in from dispensaries. Work that in and see how much of that can offset any millage increase. The other reason that I wanted to speak tonight was the mailing that came out. I would please ask whoever was in charge of sending this out to use a different font. This was extremely difficult to read, I thought. I don't know about anybody else, but, right?
Please, we can't have any interruptions, please. Go
But
ahead,
when
Mr.
there's
Ryan.
significant business to be understood, we should use a better font that we can all read easily and more clearly. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for the suggestions. Anybody else?
Sebastian Deletta, Yorkshire Street. The interpretation that I'm getting out of all this is that the city took money away from the police department to use for other things, and now want to assess us a 4-point mill to reinvest in the police department. Now, I went to the city manager twice to get a sheet to see what the city takes in and what the city spends. Haven't heard from them, received nothing. But I think, not to be rude or anything, something is getting shoved down our throat that shouldn't be. To me, the impression I'm getting is you took away from the police department, spent it on other things, and now you're trying to refund the police by adding this 4 mil. That's not right.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello, Larry Sutherland, 14395 Hamilton, Coachwood Coachwood. Because of the lack of transparency, that's what's bothering me the most. Can we, or I'm sure we can, be audited by the state to find out what happened? How come we even need to do this? Check the books. Has our police force got bigger? Have we bought more cars than 10 years ago? Or, the transparency thing is really bothering me. It doesn't seem like you're out in the open here. I mean, I didn't even know why they're burying the pipe on Sibley Road till I asked one of the contractors. Yeah, if we could get, an audit or something to show the people of the city you really need what you do and what happened the last 10 years, how come this has got to happen? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sally Sullivan. My address is 14395 Hamilton Street, also in the Forest. I have a couple things. I do think there's been some misspending, and I do think that we need to take a look at where the money is going. And I do think that, agreeing with some of the people that have said earlier, I think strongly that we do have money that's still coming from the landfill, and it is premature to go ahead and have this 4% going through right now. I think it is also something that should be tabled till the new council comes in. Obviously, we're going to have some new members, and I think it's something that they should be reviewing, not the current members, to be honest with you, because that change will take place within the next few months. I don't think this is something that needs to be approved now. I also think, like my husband suggested, there are times when we have called and asked things for things such as possibly if things could be done, and we were told that the policemen were, yes, right out there, and I agree 100%. I think policemen are worth their weight in gold. I think firemen are worth their weight in gold. I think, everything else to it. But I think it is kind of funny one time when we did ask if they could watch the corner of some of the speeding going down Coachwood, we were told, oh yeah, they're out there all the time. And they went back and checked their ledger. It was 2019, and this was just recently. We asked this a month ago. So that just, it's just kind of like, I know they do a good job and they put their life on the line. I'm not saying they don't. But again, I think that you're asking for a lot of money way ahead of time till we have a lot of things kind of in play now that need to settle down, such as the money from the dispensaries. And again, I think it's something that should be tabled to the new council and these things settle down. And I do agree strongly with the first gentleman that there is money out there that we need to find where it happened, where it went, and try and figure out where money is going and where money is being used at first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Webb, 20271 Maplewood Street. To echo a couple of sentiments previously that we just heard is questioning, number one, if this is premature, and number two, why there's a shortfall. That has not been clearly explained, I feel, to the residents. I attended both of the budget meeting sessions and came to a surprise to hear that we are that 1.5 million short, and we'll need to make that up over the next 10 years. So the question would be is why? It hasn't been clearly explained. Also, during those budget meetings, we heard about options B and C possibilities, along with the 4 mills being option A. So option B is the Headley override, and I was hoping tonight that you could explain to the residents what option B is as far as what is the Headley override and what is the current millage rate for the public safety, and if we were to vote and pass the Headley override, what would that take to public safety millage to? And then also, we never really clearly heard what option C is. So I would like some discussion, hopefully tonight before you guys vote on it, what clearly are those options and why are we voting on the increase of 4 mills now? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Bill Toll, 17861 Devonshire, Riverview. For you, Mayor and Chuck, I know both of you guys have been pursuing these tipping fees with Wayne County as far as hopefully getting some kind of reduction. Hopefully you guys can get together, get us some kind of answer. I facilitated the meeting for yourself, Mayor. Chuck indicated that he had been working on it. But that's $700,000. That would have a significant impact. If they're not going to help, they're not going to help. But we kind of need to know that. Also, what is really option B? What if this doesn't pass? What is the impact? I'd like that to be a little bit more specific and a little bit clearer. I understand that part of this 4 mills would be additional 2 officers. One for the airport, one for the schools, if the schools were interested in supporting half of its cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff, before we move on, and we'll just, for a second, do you just want to give a little bit of a background of what we're asking for, so people won't keep asking the same question again, what the money's going to be used for, where it's coming from, those types of things? At least get those out of the way.
Yes, Your Honor. In the landfill deficit elimination plan filed in February with the state treasury, it showed a reduction in transfers from the landfill. So there's $1.5 million being transferred this year, this budget year, and the following year, $500,000. In year 3, there's 0. So that's a $1.5 million gap in our budget. And that's directly related to the funding that we take to fund different departments throughout the city. So that's where the shortfall comes from. It will no longer get that 1.5 mil from the landfill.
But the impetus is really because we didn't get the expansion, so we can't count on that money for the next.
Correct,
year.
Your Honor.
All right, okay. Well, okay. Anybody else wishing to address the mayor and council?
Joe Thumich, Marcia Street, Riverview. Real quick, landfill hasn't even closed yet, and you're already asking us for a tax increase. I just cannot believe what's going to happen in about 9 or 10 years when you take that last load in. Second point is, I don't know how many police officers Riverview employs, but whatever that number is, you would think with such a small city as our own, we really should take a look at the funding and ask ourselves, do we really need all of those officers? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Moss. I live at 18207 Belade. For the most part, what Mr. Webb said, I would agree with, also having attended both budget sessions this year. The one thing is, I was the one that suggested that we roll it to the Headley Amendment. I also was the one who asked how far under the Headley Amendment we are, and I still think that would be a better course of action. I also think at this time, a 4 mil increase with us being on the brink of a recession is excessive, and it shows a lack of creativity in finding other means to fund the shortfall that we currently have. That's why I would encourage all of you, instead of putting the burden on the property tax owners entirely, to find another source if you really feel like you need the 4 mils. And I understand it may be up to 4 mils, but I think all of us in here realistically expect it to be the full 4 mils for the 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing. By
So move, Your Honor.
Support.
motion by Councilman Workman, supported by Councilwoman Ganaga. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Ganaga?
Yes.
Councilmember Norton?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins?
Yes.
Mayor Swift?
Yes.
Councilmember Workman?
Yes.
Councilmember Blanchett?
Yes.
Okay, before we get to discuss the, well, I guess it'd be part of it, this 3.2, discuss responses and objections to the special assessment district. I'll get to as many as the questions as I can, and then council can fill in some of the gaps. But I think we'll address first, Jeff, is, because I don't have the list in front of me, what option B, well, option B was the Headley. I don't remember what option C was. But just explain how the Headley override works.
Well, Your Honor, the Headley override would set back the taxable value so that it would increase everyone's taxes to the current taxable value. And, gosh, I don't have that number with me, but I had that come back to be like about, I want to say just $1 million or so a year as an additional. Unfortunately, the Headley override resets itself, and it decreases each year as the increase in property value goes back up and gets back to the level.
And that makes the tax about the same, the value goes down.
Correct.
All right. So the first one was and this is my answer, and if council thinks I'm wrong, feel free to interject. This is not any new spending. Obviously, we're looking to replace the income from the landfill. It's obviously, we're going to try to wean ourselves a little earlier than planned because we have to rebuild some escrow accounts. So it is not any new spending. It was also brought up by a couple people about the money from dispensaries. I'll just say again, this is my opinion. The money from the dispensaries, it doesn't come close to the money that we need. It's a step in the right direction, it certainly is, but we won't see a penny from the money from the state of Michigan for the dispensaries until February of 2025. We have some deficits that need to be filled before then. It says overspending on the police department. That's, I guess, an objective way to look at it. I don't think we're overspending the police department. And obviously the millage is for the purchase of police vehicles and those types of things. So obviously the money that we aren't spending on the vehicles with this millage can be paid for the personnel and all the other parts of the department. Somebody else made the comment about we took money from the police department. I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't remember, did we take money from the police department ever? Maybe a few years ago, contract time, I know the police gave up something a few contracts ago, but we have not taken any money from the police department. We are audited every year by our auditors to see where the money's going. So I don't think we're hiding any money there. But actually, tonight's vote is we're not voting on the millage tonight. We're actually voting to move it forward to get to a point so the residents can vote on it next February or March, whenever that's going to be. So we're going through all the legal steps to get as much information out as we can. This is just one of the early steps to get that process going. And somebody else asked, well, it's a little premature. Why? Well, it's not really premature. We have to start the process now because the first tax won't be collected until July of next year. If I've got my things correct, or I think that's right. So it's going to be a while before that money is collected. If there's anything that I missed that council took notes on, feel free so we can get the discussion going.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Norton.
where did you find out that we will not be receiving money from the state of Michigan until February of 2020?
Okay, how the process works, the state of Michigan takes account of number of dispensaries open. I believe it's October 1st, or not open, licenses issued. I believe that's how it works. And then, so whatever that count is, then they do the reconciliation in October of next year, and then so say if we have 4 dispensaries, I'll just come up with the number. Say if it's 50,000 per dispensary, that'd be if we have 4 dispensaries, it's 200,000. They don't pay that money out until the February of the following year. I could be wrong. I think that's how I read the process. So I knew that would be the perception that we're not going to need any of this money because of dispensaries. It's just not true. So the money from the dispensaries will start coming in, and obviously once they're in years, then that's money we don't need. And so I think the way this is worded, it's up to 4 mills. Let's say the dispensaries do well, and we get 10 of them, then there's our $1 million. Then we won't need to do the whole 4 mills. So it's not a one-to-one comparison yet. So something else I'm missing, feel free.
I just have some questions through your chair to either the city manager or the police chief. What are the average miles that we put on our police cars every year?
We typically replace our vehicles about 5 years or about 120,000 miles.
Okay, I'm not done. So, previously, our budget was for 25 officers, and currently we have 23, correct?
You are correct, Councilman Norton.
All right, how many officers?
Fully staffed, I think is what you're saying.
Pardon me?
We're not fully staffed, correct?
Correct.
Okay, right.
How many officers do we have per shift?
That fluctuates.
Okay, on average.
And normally, we don't like to tell people how many we have on a shift,
Okay.
but we'll say the minimum out there is at least 2 on days.
Your first statement was fine with me. I understand. Thank you. Do we feel, as a city manager and a police chief, that we have enough right now?
Your Honor, yes, I do.
Chief?
Yes.
At full budget.
Yeah, we were budgeted for 25 last year. The reason we went down to 23 this year is we didn't fill a lieutenant spot, an admin lieutenant or deputy chief spot, let's say, and we haven't had anybody in the airport in several years. So those were the two spots that I left out of the budget this year.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Go ahead.
To be done with the police department and going back to the land.
One thing, Councilman Norton, before you leave police, just to let you know, there are no cars budgeted for this year in this budget year, and we're going to take an inventory and look at the mileage and the conditions for the following year.
And we just used up the rest of the DEA forfeiture money in 2022, correct, or was it 21?
Councilman Norton, I'm not sure what that balance is. Chief, would you happen to know what's left in the forfeiture account that we do buy the cars out of when we could?
Yes, we do have approximately, I think, 150,000 maybe still in there. And historically, looking back at our budgets, we haven't paid out of the general fund for any vehicles. It's come out of that fund.
Yes, and I think to the chief's points, as most people know, we used to have an officer at the airport, and obviously when there's arrests made and money's confiscated, when the trial is all adjudicated and all done, the money confiscated is divided up amongst the communities that participate, and with that money, it's designated for, I'll say, police and public safety matters. So for years, I think ever since I've been on council, we've been using that money to purchase police vehicles and anything else related to public safety. So with that money actually going away within the next year or two, or even quicker than that, that needs to be replaced. So that's kind of what the plan would be for this money also.
All right. To move on from police and go to the landfill, through your chair to the city manager, could you explain, since we have a large crowd, why we had to file a debt elimination plan at the landfill?
Jeff?
Well, the deficit elimination plan was that during COVID, and maybe just shortly before, our revenue numbers were down, our operating... Okay. Our revenues were down, our operating costs are pretty stable. I mean, we reduced them where we could. The variable costs were reduced, but the fixed costs, there's a lot of fixed costs to a landfill, which means that expenses were over revenue, which put us in a deficit, as well as the monies that were transferred to the general fund to support the general fund. And therefore, hence, it created a deficit, which then we had to work off the deficit elimination plan. Unbeknownst to me, before I started, I didn't know that we were in it right at that time, and then COVID just expanded or increased it. So now we're back on track. We filed with the state, and now we've got to work off this plan, revenue and expense.
Right, and I would like to capitalize on what you said before you started. You didn't know that.
Correct.
The council didn't know that. The landfill committee didn't know that.
We were informed the first year when the prior budget and finance director filed that.
Right. And you as a landfill director and the council members, including those that were on the landfill committee, did not know that the capital improvement escrow account went from 30 million down to 100,000.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the total was to start, because that was already expended before I got there. But it was to pay for cell construction. And there was some terms made that it was a timing difference between putting all the money out to build a cell to collect the trash funds or tipping fees over the course of a number of years.
Right.
It's not that money just disappeared.
Oh, no, it was all spent on
That's just, I want to make
capital
that clear. The
expenses.
money just didn't disappear.
Correct.
It's not in my pocket last time I checked.
No, and Mr. Mayor, I thank you for saying that. The point I'm trying to prove or make is the landfill director, who was Mr. Dobek at the time, didn't know. The landfill committee, which consists of council members, didn't know. And the rest of the council did not know. You, Mr. Mayor, you and were on the landfill committee, and you were not aware of that either.
I
mean,
was
We
not.
were all blindsided by that.
Yep,
Is that correct?
that's true.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion?
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Did we ever find out how much money we did spend on the landfill expansion?
Jeff, did we ever get that?
No, I did not. It's, it's through many times. I mean, some of those expenses were from 17, and then it started forward to the current year. But, I mean, we can compile those. I can get with Ann when, I'm trying to get caught up, because I had 6 months without a budget and finance director, so we were kind of,
Thank you.
yep.
Any further discussion? Okay.
Your Honor?
Councilwoman Ganaga.
I just wanted to note that if we decide to move forward, there will be an education campaign explaining all the details and answering a lot of the questions moving forward, correct?
Oh, absolutely, yes. We just had, we had our second of two presentations tonight by two firms that, we'll pick one of the two firms to do the education campaign, which will be two parts. There'll be a public campaign, and then a part funded separately by somebody else, a promotional campaign, either for or against. But at least we get to pick out the firm that will do the education for the city of Riverview. Obviously, we can't endorse a yes or a no vote, but we can certainly do our best to get the word out of. And they're all good questions tonight on where the money's going. We do have a list of the cost of the police department, where the expenses are, and well, actually, to be honest, the grand total expense for the police department is $4,863,000. We're looking for $1.54 million to help us with that. So, any further discussion? 4.1, adopt waiving Council Policy 1, Section 20A8, and adopt a resolution establishing Riverview Police Protection Public Safety Special Assessment District, and direct the assessor to prepare a special assessment roll. What's council's pleasure?
So move, Your Honor.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Workman, supported by Councilwoman Blanchett. Any further discussion? And
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
I want to make it very clear, this is so that our city will be able to look at what's going on, whether they want to go forward with this, not go forward with this. It's not us that's making this decision, it's them. And what they'll be giving up if it doesn't, I think we need to make that very clear. That's a decision for the residents. The residents have made it clear in the past they want to make different decisions, so now they have an opportunity.
Thank you. And before we take roll, I do want to read the resolution, so it'll be in public record. Resolution establishing Police Protection Public Safety Special Assessment District. Whereas on June 19th, 2023, the council authorized and directed the city manager to prepare cost estimates for the police public safety special assessment for the Riverview Police Department Public Safety. Whereas these cost estimates have been prepared and shared with city council and filed with the city clerk. Whereas the cost estimate of $1,544,000, which equals 4 mills, to be used for the purchase of police motor vehicles, apparatus, and equipment to defray the cost of maintenance and operations, including personnel of the police department. Whereas the City Council of the City of Riverview, County of Wayne, State of Michigan, pursuant to Act 33, Public Acts of Michigan, 1951, as amended, declares its intent to create a special assessment district to pay for certain costs and expenses for the purchasing of police motor vehicles, apparatus, and equipment to defray the cost of maintenance and operations, including personnel of the police department, the assessed costs, and the assessed costs of thereof the property department. Let me get this right. Department, the assessed costs, and assesses the cost of thereof of the property specially benefited by said police protection, public safety in the special assessment district tentatively described in Exhibit A. Attached hereto and made part hereof, and whereas after due and legal notice, the City Council met on August 14th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Eastern Time and heard all persons in interest therein, and said first hearing with respect to estimates of assessed costs and on questions of creating the special assessment district, therefore, and whereas directly following the August 14th public hearing, the City Council waived Council Policy 1, Section 20A8 to evaluate responses and objections to the special assessment district. And whereas the City Council desires to proceed with the establishment of the special assessment district, and whereas the City Council desires to authorize and direct the assessor to prepare proposed special assessment city roll. That's the first page. Now therefore, be it resolved that the City Council hereby determines the provision of the police motor vehicles, apparatus, and equipment, and defraying the costs of maintenance and operations, including personnel, of the police department necessary for the public health, safety, welfare of the city, and shall be made and completed pursuant to Act 33. The City Council hereby approves and plans the estimate of the assessed costs in the total sum of $1,544,000, which shall be assessed to all lots and parcels of the land in the city, as more particularly described in Exhibit A, attached hereto and made part hereof, and which shall be spread against the hereinafter named Police Protection Public Safety Special Assessment District pursuant to Act 33. The City Council determines that the said Special Assessment District shall consist of all lots and parcels of land described in Exhibit A, attached hereto and made part hereof, that the district shall be designated Riverview Police Protection Public Safety and Special Assessment District, the district. And the existence of the district shall be maintained until all special assessments payable on the roll hereinafter described as may be amended from time to time, have been paid for a period of 10 years. The assessor shall prepare the proposed special assessment roll, including all lots and parcels of land within the special assessment district designated by the City Council, and shall assess to each such lot or parcel of land relative sum to be levied against all lands in the special assessment district as the benefit to such lot or parcel of land bears the total benefits to all the land in the district, and shall file such special assessment roll bearing the assessor's certificate with the clerk for the clerk present to the City Council, to present to the City Council. All resolutions and part of the resolutions, insofar as they conflict with provisions of this resolution, have been hereby rescinded. What's council? Okay, roll call.
Councilmember Norton?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins?
Yes.
Mayor Swift?
Yes.
Councilmember Workman?
Yes.
Councilmember Blanchett?
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga?
Yes.
All right. Now is the time for actually our normal public comment. Now is the time for guest and visitor comment. Anyone wishing to address the mayor and council, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Try to keep your comments to 5 minutes. There's no sharing of time and no rebuttals, and please be respectful. Yes, sir.
Ken Kyleman, 20243 Coachwood. I had some other remarks, but I want to just kind of volley back as to what we just talked about. Back when the landfill expansion was defeated, I recall numbers flying around that at that point I think we had like $3.5 million being transferred from the landfill to the city, and people were talking about a $10 million increase to cover that when the landfill was finally closed. Our city manager, I know, has worked real hard at getting the budget in line, trying to get rid of some waste, and that transfer has gone down from $3.5 million to 1.6 when you do the capital. There's a CIP thing in there, plus the other transfer, and that's a great, I think, reduction in that. We have to face the reality that's pretty soon, a couple of years, that money is going to be gone. We have to have a replacement. And as the mayor had said, this is not for new spending. This is for existing spending. So the money that we're currently spending on the police, we'll be able to reallocate that somewhere else, if I understand it correctly, if this goes through, and these funds will be able to allocate it to the police. So in effect, when we get to that date in 2025, if this goes through and the cannabis stores are here, it'll be a wash. And we'll be at a place where that 10 mil threat's not hanging over our head anymore. And I moved here 30 years ago from Allen Park, okay? I'm sure glad I'm paying Riverview taxes, even with 4 mills on top of it, than what they're paying back in Allen Park. So, Jeff, I want to thank you for the work you're doing, and I think this is a responsible first step into taking care of this scary thing that's been before us with the landfill closure. That being said, I'd like to thank all the candidates who put themselves out there, played by the rules, ran honest, civilized campaigns, telling the truth, following our election laws, rejecting fear-mongering, and providing creative answers to our many challenges. I'll leave it up to each candidate and the voters to determine who this describes, but character does matter. And for those of you who are moving on to the general election in November, though you're competing against one another for votes, remember that individually and collectively, your campaigns represent our great city to those who are watching. I'd also like to thank our city clerk and her team for all the hard work that goes into the election process. The Riverview is free from justifiable accusations of illegitimacies around our voting procedures in these times is a testimony to Cindy's leadership. Thank you, Cindy. However, I do have a request. The results of the last primary election where council seats were on the ballot back in August 3rd of 2021 were reported to the public precinct by precinct. Is it possible to have the results of the most recent primary reported in the same manner, including the results for mayor and proposal 1? I would appreciate it.
They're on the website.
By precinct?
Are they there now?
By precinct. They've been there.
All right.
I can't find them.
They're on the public notice page, right underneath the election summary result. Right underneath that, it says by precinct.
Okay, I'll go and check that out. Thank you. If I can't find it, I'll send you an
I know
email
you
and ask
will.
you to get it. All right. And finally, I'd like to express my displeasure towards the Riverview Register as to how it announced the results of the recent election. In my opinion, I believe they demonstrated a bit of disrespect towards the city and its voters by printing the headline, "Weed Wins," using a term that our ordinance prohibits the dispensaries themselves from using in their signage in describing their businesses. Though they have every right to print what they want, their choice of words demonstrates a lack of seriousness and sensitivity, and I expect better of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just a couple quick questions. I don't know if I understood you correctly. I know we're budgeted for 25 officers. Do we have 25 right now?
Chief, that's 23, correct?
Correct. Budgeted for 23, we have 23.
Okay. Also, this was actually last year was the first year that we didn't meet our requirements as far as the perpetual care and the financial assurance funds, right? We were short, according to the financial, about $1,461,000. Is that correct?
The perpetual care for the landfill?
Like the perpetual care and financial assurances are required by the state, those two, right? We fell short this year of like $1,461,592 of being able to put that in. That was for the closure costs.
I have no idea.
To the mayor, we were short more than that because of the factors that the state used. Every year we were pre-funded and 100% funded. They used a different calculation with a different inflation factor. So we were actually shorter than that, and we went out and got a letter of credit so that we didn't have to actually write a check for the shortage. We could just get a letter of credit from our bank that says the monies are there should they take the landfill over, which is what the requirement was.
Okay, I'm only using the numbers that were quoted in the year-end statement. So, I'll talk to you about it later. That's fine.
Well, the year-end statement's not done. The audit's just starting.
2022.
So, yep, the audit's just starting.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Sally Sullivan again, 14395 Hamilton Street. One quick question. I guess I want some clarification. Is the issue of expanding the landfill totally dead? Because all of a sudden, I thought it was, then I hear some repercussions that, no, it's not dead, and it may come up again. Especially for anybody who's got any environmental concerns in this area, it should be. But I guess I want to know, because I still hear these inklings through all these election results and election concerns that, no, it's not dead. So I would like an honest answer. Is it dead or is it not dead?
Well, the best I can answer, I learned to say never, but I am not aware of any plans we have now for an expansion.
Thank you.
That could change in the future, but as of today, we do not have any plans.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
Hello again, David Ryan, 17584 Clark Street. I'm not certain I understand all the numbers, and I'm a numbers guy, so maybe I got to do some homework. But one of the things that struck me listening to the discussion here tonight is that the council, or at least the city manager, who is expected to have some of the answers that the citizens here are looking for, did not have those answers.
So you can clear up, what is it that he didn't answer? So
I
make
lost
sure-
count. So what,
Please, let's have some order here. Go ahead, go ahead, David. Sorry.
so my perception is that we have a trust issue. And I think that should be something the council needs to address. If you look back at this tape, I think you'll see that there were a lot of questions wondering what's going on here, what's going on there, some uncertainty as to where monies are and where monies aren't. One person asked for an audit. So whatever the city could do to tighten things up and create some more transparency, I think would be well received. Thank you very much.
And well, just before you go, I mean, obviously, we get audited every year. Plant Moran audits our books. And as far as I know, they haven't found any discrepancies, any money disappearing. So, I mean, I don't want to leave it where you said that, there's the mistrust and we're not given full information. Just give me one example of a question tonight where we weren't fully responsive. So, and I want to make sure we can do that.
I think you tried to answer as best you could. But it was people looking, well, it was members of the council looking at each other. Do you know? Do you know? I haven't heard. Have you heard? I mean, those kinds of answers, even if eventually you do provide a solid answer, leads one to wonder, well, what's really going on? It may just be a matter of presentation, a matter of being able to quickly respond as opposed to a delay in your response. And I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just wondering if that's a situation, then I think the city would be wise, or the council would be wise to be sensitive to that and do everything that you can to make sure that is not the case. And I didn't think of it, but I was also struck by the headline in the Riverview Register. I thought it was extremely poor taste, and I agree with the gentleman that brought up that point. Thank you again for the time.
Thank you.
Brian Webb, 20271 Maplewood, and I apologize, I need to get to the next meeting, but I had one of the questions that I feel that wasn't adequately answered. I know everybody likes to know what their options are, and I'm happy that you guys, and I want to believe you do your due diligence before you come and ask for a millage increase to the residents. So again, I heard option B, and thank you for explaining where the 1.5 million came from. I did not make the correlation knowing that the landfill is going to stop their transfers over the next 2 years. I figured we have 2 years of 1.5 million coming, and then after 2025, then we'd have to make up the revenue. So that's why I thought perhaps it's a bit premature, but you have to plan ahead. So with that planning ahead in your due diligence, options B and C, okay? With the Headley override, it rolls back some of the millages as the taxable values change, right? So where currently are we at for the millage rate for the police and fire department for the public safety? Does anybody know that millage?
Jeff.
Your Honor, it was on that, it's on the tax summary that I did with the city budget, so I'd have to pull that out. I don't have that with me. It's not something that I carry around, but yes, we can go back and see exactly.
But I mean, and just for the sake of discussion for Mr. Webb, the total cost for the police department's $4.8 million. We're asking for 1.4 to just, what was it? 1.544. Yeah, okay, all right, yes, 1.544 is this, that's the 4 mills. But I think what you were asking, what is the mills total for the police department? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
So that's got to be, you're Mr. Math.
Yeah, well, let me try to do something here.
It's got to be 8.
I'm just rounding. Mr. Mayor, I'm just going to round.
All right.
4863, 487 divided by 386,000 per mil. It's 125.99. So basically a mil is $386,000. So if you take the total cost of 4,863, 487 divided by 386,125. So that's, I mean, that's, 125 times a mil. Correct? I mean, that's, yeah, right? So each mill's, Mr. Webb, each mill's $386,000.
And there'd be 125 mills, is what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Well, 125 times.
125, yeah.
Is what the $4.8 million for the police.
So that obviously exceeds the amount of money that we need.
Yes.
Right.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 times, I'm sorry, yep, that's the decimal.
Okay, and the reason I brought that forward is because at some point, we possibly, in taking Ken's point in consideration, you've done a great job at lowering it, what the gap is down to like 1.5, 1.6. Maybe coming back to the residents for another tax increase. So I'm just wondering if option B would actually take care of needing to come back to the residents at a later point, or if it's the option that we're going to go to later if A doesn't succeed for the vote from the residents. Then how do you control, we're going to be in the same situation, right? If A doesn't pass and we're at B and that does pass, you're going to have an excessive amount of taxes being collected, right? So the point would be is what it would be option C. So the residents know all their options when it comes to voting time. Is there going to be an education process, or are we going to find out what our options are?
Well, there will be, we said before, there will be an education process of what the mills means. And the reason we didn't go with the Headley, because it would reset and we'd be in bad shape a lot quicker than the 10 years. Option C would be I don't remember what option C was listed, but it's got to be looking back, making cuts in the police department, because that's our biggest cost. So, and we obviously don't want to do that. So,
So it was 12 mills.
yeah.
I had the wrong decimal. Thank you, Mr. Cowman. Mr. Cowman's my assistant controller for the city of
Would it be 12
Riverview.
mills?
Yeah, yeah.
Just to be clear?
And when we say up to 4 mills, that can be offset by, of course, the revenue from the cannabis. That can be offset by any grants. That can be offset by any kind of additional financing. Gas plant, things, but we have to prepare for those transfers to go away if we want to maintain consistent city services.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't think anyone wants to decimate city services. So how do we get there? Until we figure out exactly all the revenue coming in, how do we get there? And this is one way to get there, and then we can wait and see. And you got to understand, the millage would be voted on by council. After it would be passed by the electorate, then the council would decide how many mills they need to make that budget work on an annual basis at budget time. It's not an automatic. It can be looked at on a budget by budget time.
So it's on a sliding scale every year?
Sure,
And it could be
sure.
reduced
What's
or
needed
increased.
to make it work?
Right.
With the $1.5 million transfer this year, we made it work. With a $500,000 transfer next year, the budget won't work.
Okay.
It'll be short $1 million. So what do you do with that?
From your due diligence, what I'm hearing is this is the best option for the 4 mills rather than doing the Headley rollback.
Absolutely. And I'll figure out what option C was from Plant Moran. I know you went to that, but it was highly undesirable. That was like the worst-case scenario. Why would you want to do that?
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yep.
Thank you.
You bet.
With that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion by Councilman Workman, supported by Councilman Blanchett. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
Councilmember Blanchett.
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Let the record show we adjourned at 7:55. Thank you, everybody.